and lying at his door was a poor man named Lazarus. Some of you know that a few years back, the Archbishop assigned me to a parish in downtown Seattle to be the administrator. And it was a brand new parish right in the heart of downtown Seattle on 2nd Avenue, right there amongst the homeless of Seattle. And my time there was inspiring, it was rewarding, but it also gave me an awareness, a more of awareness in the plight of the poor. Day in and day out, I met the Lazaruses of our time. He lies on a pile of newspapers outside a shop doorway, covered with an old, tattered blanket. Sometimes he has a dog with him for safety. People walk past him or her, or even step over them. Some are beggars that occasionally ask for some change to buy a smoke or enough to buy a hamburger at the local McDonald's. Now, maybe there was a time when Lazarus was not there in such great numbers, but he's here now in all of the cities of the richest country in the world. And actually, Seattle King County now is third in the nation for the most homelessness, behind New York and Los Angeles, two huge cities. Think about that. We are third. And as I walk by day in and day out, I would hear the harsh voices of our society rattling around in my head as they say, it's Lazarus' own fault, or he's chosen that way of life. There are plenty of agencies to help her out. He will only spend the money to buy a drink. Stay away. She might be violent. And the cruelest of all, Lazarus should simply find a job. And until he does find a job, why don't the police move him or her on their way to get the problem out of our sight? Harsh voices indeed, but also real voices out there. I can guarantee you that. However, even if Lazarus is removed from our sight, we all know that there are whole societies made up of men, women, and children who camp in tin shacks or tents on the edge of rich, large cities. Every day, they have to rummage through the dumpsters to get a scrap from the restaurant's leftovers. Or the lucky ones may have a family of 10, and one of them has a job to clean the high-rise buildings. I think we all know Lazarus. We may run from him, but we can't hide from him. He is there. And he is pure and simple our neighbor. Our neighbors who are we to love in any way, big or small. And whether near or far, we are to stand in solidarity with the poor amongst us. This gospel passage reminds me of a story when we were in deacon formation program and we were studying the Gospel of Luke, looking at this parable. And I remember this instructor using the words from the Magnificat. He has filled the hungry with good things. He has sent away empty the rich. And he looked straight at me. And he said, that must be very hard to preach that gospel on Mercer Island. And I have to say, my first reaction was, I was insulted. Because I know that there are very, very many generous people on Mercer Island and St. Monica in particular. And I also know that this parish does a lot to take care of those who are most in need. And Father Freitag delineated those ministries last week. Insulting, yes. But there was a point to his statement. Lazarus may not be on our doorsteps on Mercer Island, but we must take heed to the prophet Amos in our first reading. Woe to the complacent in Zion. We must keep our eyes open and pay attention to the people right here in our midst, the ones who are hurting dearly and for whom no one seems to care. And it's not always or just about money. Maybe it's the widowed neighbor who is terribly lonely. Maybe it is the coworker who feels he or she really doesn't fit in and never gets invited to the social activities. Maybe it's a child in school that never gets chosen and invited to anything. Maybe it's an elderly parent who is placed in a home and rarely visited. Maybe it's a friend who is going through a divorce and needs someone to lend a compassionate, non-judgmental ear. Or, if you're the activist type, maybe it's a whole group of people, any minority or marginalized group that struggles simply to be treated with the same respect and have the same opportunities as the people in the majority. Who are our Lazaruses? Who are invisible to us? And just as importantly, what are each of us going to do about it? So as we leave this church today where Lazarus is welcome, let us reflect on what ways we can brighten their day when we find them, or him or her, wherever they may be. Even if it's only a smile, a hello, or a helping hand that may not be acknowledged even with a thank you, we still will be bringing the love and compassion of Jesus to our neighbor. Let us not be numb to the plight of the poor. And woe to the complacent.